Hear my thoughts on all the things that took place at Super Bowl 58 over this week on JG9 News. New content dropping every single day on that channel. And now, on with our feature presentation. Tony Romo is the most scrutinized announcer in the NFL. Heck, I've done a video on him before criticizing one of the worst calls of his career, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. When, during a game this season, between the New England Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Patriots trailing the Raiders 19-16 after a touchdown with just over 3 minutes left in the contest, he suggested that the Patriots should go for 2 points to make it 19-18 instead of kicking the extra point to make it 19-17, which doesn't make any sense if you stop to think about it for more than 5 seconds. The number one guy on any network is going to be scrutinized, especially when it's someone like Romo, who started off his broadcasting career so strong and so promising. His breakdown during overtime of the 2018 AFC Championship, where he was accurately predicting everything that the Patriots are going to do based on the way the Chiefs' defense was lining up, was one of the greatest works of broadcasting of all time. But ever since, it's been a downward trajectory. The further he's been out of the game, the more he's relying on natural instincts and just getting really excited without any substance behind it. Heck, sometimes he'll just say blatantly incorrect information. During this Super Bowl, when Chiefs center Creed Humphrey delivered a series of low snaps, he called it uncharacteristic. Even though this was a problem, the last freaking game of the Chiefs played it. Low snap. Mahomes has to skip. Mahomes takes a snap. It's another low snap. It actually hits the ground. Too wide. Another low snap! And that's a backwards pass to Kelsey. Kelsey looking to throw it himself. He's going to pick up 5 and a first down. But again, oh man, that is back-to-back play. It's happened a lot now. It's happened a lot. Humphrey, they got to get this sorted out. Especially with this being the most watched Super Bowl of all time, there was going to be a ton of attention drawn to Romo, and he had to deliver in the moment. CBS executives were not too happy with Romo last year, according to reports. And with Greg Olsen, a very good number one commentator on Fox, soon to be available, seeing as Tom Brady is taking over that number one job, Romo entered this game probably knowing that he was fighting for his job. And honestly, for the first 4 quarters of the game, Humphrey miscue aside, I thought it was fine. Not great, but fine. There was one moment in particular where a penalty was called. Patrick Mahomes started walking back, thinking that it was on the Chiefs, but Romo was adamant that it was on the 49ers, and explained what it was before the referee said anything. And he was right. That felt like vintage Romo. That's why he got the number one job. If the game ended in regulation, honestly, I'd probably give him a B for the performance. Solid job that won't be talked about one way or the other, which is a pretty good thing. And then, overtime happened. And everything fell apart. Okay, you know the person that goes up there in karaoke and does a song, and you think to yourself, hey, they're not half bad. That was a decent rendition of an 80s song. Instead of leaving the bar, at that point, they signed up for another song. Only this time, they had 3 more drinks than they did the first time they went up there, and this time, in a more drunken state, they go up there and do Sweet Child of Mine. Yeah, that's what Tony Romo was in overtime. The first 4 quarters of the game, he was fine. And then, when overtime came along, he ruined the Super Bowl. Seriously, this performance, with the whole country watching, was a fireable offense that might cost Romo his job. And for that matter, Jim Nantz deserves a ton of blame too for reasons I'll get into in just a bit. We cannot let Jim Nantz off the hook here. Because this is a breakdown of how Tony Romo, with his overtime performance, ruined the Super Bowl. And there's 2 things in particular that we need to talk about. I'm sure you know what the second one is, but I'll talk about the first one leading up to the final play. When you listen to Romo in overtime, you wonder if he has ever watched football in his life, because every play has the significance of being the final play of the game. There are apparently 15 or 20 different final plays in a game. Sometimes, you can just tell when the moment is big. You can give the audience more credit than you think you might have to give them. When you say that a play is for the Super Bowl, the play that comes to mind is Harrison Butker's field goal attempt at the end of regulation. If Butker misses that kick, that's the ballgame, and the 49ers win the Super Bowl. or in overtime, if the 49ers scored a touchdown, the Chiefs scored one and went for two, that play is for the Super Bowl. But you know what's not for the Super Bowl? I'll tell you what, every single freaking play of the game. It's crazy. Tony Romo, on multiple occasions during the overtime period, said that a play was for the Super Bowl when it was not for the Super Bowl. Imagine if you're watching Wimbledon and the announcer says on match point that this is for the match. That's totally fine. Imagine watching Wimbledon and the announcer says when the fourth set is tied 3-3 and this point is 15-15 that this is for the match. You think they were insane. You think they just love to hear themselves talk, and you think they have no idea what tennis was. And Romo did this over and over again. Take this play. The 49ers go 3-and-out, but there's a flag on the field that should extend the drive for San Francisco. Listen to Romo's analysis.
That's a huge difference in punting or getting a first down for the Super Bowl.
All right, big play? Yeah, of course. You don't want to be punting it back to the Chiefs. But for the Super Bowl? Last time I checked, with or without the flag, the game is still tied at 19-all. Last time I checked, the game is still going on. You can say that something is a big play without saying that it's for the game, especially if it's not for the game, because guess what? Maybe the Niners can stop the Chiefs, and then that play that you said was for the Super Bowl turned out to not be for anything at all. But okay, he did it one time. That seems like a nitpick. Surely he didn't do it again, right?
I want you to watch him. This is for the Super Bowl.
No, Tony! No, it's not! That play is not for the Super Bowl! If Chris Jones doesn't break up this pass, the Chiefs still get the ball back! Do you not know the overtime rules? Like, honestly, you had 2 years to learn the OT rules while making millions upon millions of dollars. How do you not know? There is no universe where that play is for the Super Bowl. If the Niners score, the Chiefs still get a chance to answer. It is not like the Bills-Chiefs divisional round game. It is not like Super Bowl 51. A touchdown on the first drive does not end it. You still like Kansas City's chances of winning, even if that play is a touchdown. Unbelievable, but okay. Just don't do it again.
Jennings wins for the Super Bowl right down there.
Are you kidding me, Tony? Hayes doesn't win for the Super Bowl. The Chiefs still get the ball back. The Chiefs still get the freaking ball back. This is like if, in baseball, there's a runner on third, and it's the top of the 10th, and it's a tie game. And I say that this is for the World Series. Like, no, it's not. The bottom of the 10 still has to be played. CBS can't allow Romo to be on after this gaffe. They just can't, especially with all the criticism that he's gotten. Your job as an announcer is to make things easy to understand. Your job is to not confuse them even more. Millions of people heard Romo's comments and said to themselves, wait, I thought the Chiefs get the ball back. Why is Romo talking about this like it's for the Super Bowl and like it's a walk-off? Especially because this is the first ever game under these overtime rules, you had a duty to make it easy to understand, and you didn't by blatantly screwing up the interpretation. Because the Chiefs would get the ball back, and they would win it on a walk-off touchdown. And oh man, we need to talk about this. This is the moment that will live on in infamy. One of the greatest plays in NFL history, and Romo had to make himself a part of the moment with the worst call in the history of the big game. An announcer is an important part of the game, much like a referee is an important part of the game. However, much like the referee, you never want the announcer to be the part of the game. It's never good when I say the Mike Goldberg game, and you know exactly which game I'm talking about, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. When a big moment happens that ends the game, you let the crowd take over. You let the broadcast breathe. That's one of the #1 rules of broadcasting. Silence is powerful. Silence is sometimes the best call you can make. And everyone knows this. Jim Nantz had a great call on the Hardman touchdown, where he said jackpot. Fitting call for a Vegas Super Bowl. Up there with one of Nantz's best calls. And if that's where it ended, we'd be good. But oh no. Because without even letting the broadcast breathe for 1 minute, Romo had to interject and do this.
There! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas City!
And this was the Andy Reid special.
They literally didn't even finish the first cut. Romo was already talking about the X's and O's of this play, as if to say, look how smart I am, guys. Look, I do watch film. I know the players on this team. I'm credible. And I'm not saying that the breakdown wouldn't be appropriate later in the broadcast. But does Romo have any knowledge of a broadcast and how it works? He called it like they were about to sign off the air 5 seconds later. It's the walk-off touchdown in the Super Bowl. They're going to show a gazillion different replays. You'll have time once the crowd noise subsides and the moment sinks in to analyze and break down the play. But to do it right away, 2 seconds after the play was done, to step on Nance's toes, to step on the toes of the play itself, downright shameful, and one of the most selfish things I've ever seen a broadcaster do. I want to show you exactly what I mean. Here are just some of the greatest moments in NFL history in the 21st century. You'll notice a common theme with this. Listen to the announcer and wait how long it takes for one of the color commentators to interject or for the play-by-play person to start speaking again. We'll start with James White's walk-off touchdown at Super Bowl 51 for the Patriots.
He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his 5th! What a comeback! Another look to make sure.
Alright, 15 seconds. And it would have been longer if the director didn't cut to a replay, which they had to just because it was close enough where you didn't know if his knee was down. But everything before the replay was dead silent. The way it should be. Speaking of great Joe Buck calls, and maybe the greatest call of all time, what about the Minneapolis Miracle between the Vikings and the Saints in the 2017 divisional?
See Marcus Williams here. He has a shot.
33 seconds. Troy Aikman waits until the replay to start talking, instead letting the crowd take over and describe what just happened. But it doesn't have to be a neutral site game or a home game. What about a road game? What about the miracle of the New Meadowlands with the Deshaun Jackson punt return to complete a miracle comeback for the Eagles against the Giants?
Unbelievable! No time left. Eagles win.
Perfect. About 13 or 14 seconds with that one. And one of the most famous moments of them all, the Saints-Falcons block punt by Steve Gleason and the return to the Superdome in 2006 on Monday Night Football. Talk about letting the moment speak for itself. Listen to this.
A kick block by Steve Gleason. It is scooped and scored by Curtis DeLoach. Touchdown, New Orleans. John Parney for the extra point.
36 seconds. 36 seconds in between Tirico saying a touchdown for the Saints and the extra point taking place. And it probably would have been longer if not for the fact that this wasn't the final play of the game. So there was a 40-second play clock. And they had to do it. And now, rewatch Romo's call with Nantz.
There! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas
Kansas City. And this was the Andy Reid special.
2 seconds. You notice a difference, right? You notice a difference. Romo had to inject himself into the moment. He had to make himself a part of one of the greatest moments of all time. He just had to. Imagine this. Imagine if your child is taking their first steps. It only happens one time in their life that they take their first steps. And naturally, you want to have it on video. There's 3 of you in the room alongside the kid. It's you, your significant other, and let's say your cousin that you're not super close to, but he's there because it's the holidays or something. And as the kid is walking, and you're crying and encouraging them, the cousin starts making himself on film a part of the moment by cracking jokes. Like, he'll be suiting up for the Carolina Panthers soon. Or, not as good as my 40 time, but still pretty good. Monumental moment that happens only once, and your cousin comes in and ruins it with his unnecessary commentary, when there's plenty of time for him to comment afterwards. The number one criticism I've had of Romo for a while is that he refuses to let the broadcast breathe, and views silence as a bad thing. It was a criticism last year after the AFC Championship, where Harrison Butker got the game-winning field goal, the crowd was going nuts, and Romo just had to insert himself into the mix right away by talking about what a great season Cincinnati had. And he clearly hasn't improved, because if anything, based on this game, it's gotten worse. And even though the jackpot call was great, this is where Jim Nantz deserves a ton of blame for how this came out. And look, I like Jim Nantz. I think he's a consummate professional. I think he's a very good broadcaster, a very good play-by-play man. But he deserves as much blame as Tony Romo for how that call ended. When I'm play-by-play, and I've done play-by-play for a long, long time, and I want to let the moment breathe, and I don't want anyone saying anything, I throw up the stop sign. I throw my hands up like this, as if to say, do not say anything. Once I put my hands down, you're good. But I put my hands up like that to restrain them and say, look, do not say anything. Until I put my hands down, don't say a word. And Jim Nantz either didn't do that, he didn't give the stop sign, which in that case, I blame him, or Tony Romo has such little respect for Jim Nantz that he blew by the stop sign. Jim Nantz acts as a play-by-play guy, he acts as the third base coach. He didn't give the sign. And for that, I have to give him a ton of criticism, especially because that is part of the job of a play-by-play person. Mike Tirico famously in 2006, during that Steve Gleason block punt that I showed earlier, he said that one of the things that he did was he threw up the stop sign. Look at this article. He said that for 36 seconds, that stop sign was up. And he knew the moment it happened, say touchdown New Orleans, and then get out of the way. And he had to throw up the stop sign just so that everyone got the message. Jim Nantz, he had to know. He had to throw up the stop sign. He didn't. And for that, he deserves as much blame as Tony Romo does for Romo's stupid comments. Tony Romo blew it. Plain and simple, he blew it. He had a chance to do the best thing of his broadcasting career, and something that every broadcaster does and hopefully gets a chance to do. And that is get out of the way and let the moment speak for itself. But nope, he couldn't even do that right. This is going to be an interesting offseason for a lot of parties from Sunday's game. For the Chiefs, what do they do with Chris Jones? For the 49ers, what do they do with Brandon Ayuk? And for CBS, what do they do with Tony Romo? Because I don't know after this if you can bring him back. I don't know, Jim. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.